in managing investigations and identify the key responsibilities of managing investigations. Management responsibilities, the ABCs of investigations. Preventing and responding to sexual exploitation and abuse means creating a culture of safety among staff and with our beneficiaries. When we talk about SEA during this e-learning presentation, we're referring to sexual exploitation and abuse of beneficiaries or other vulnerable members of the community by humanitarian or development workers. Managers are responsible for the 3 general areas shown here in boxes. Establish codes of conduct and ensure staff are adequately trained and understand the code. Establish community-based complaints mechanisms that are easily accessible to the community and to staff. Investigate allegations following established policies and protocols using trained investigators. In this e-learning program, we will explore managers' responsibilities for managing investigations and learn about the key tools and resources that will guide you through those management responsibilities. This is a step-by-step description of the ABCs of investigations. Here, we will give an overview of the steps in the process and also orient you to some of the key resource materials that will help you to manage the process. First, there must be a code of conduct in place that applies to all staff, volunteers, consultants, and contractors of the organization. The code of conduct must, at minimum, include the 6 specific standards laid out in the IASC 6 core principles. Click here to view the principles. Staff training should be robust and of good quality to ensure that all staff understand the importance of the code of conduct, the meaning of each specific standard, including examples of the types of behavior that are prohibited, the duty to report suspicions of sexual exploitation or abuse and how to make those reports, what could happen if there's a violation of the code. Staff should sign the code of conduct to indicate their understanding and agreement to abide by the standards. When the standards of conduct are clear, the next step is to establish mechanisms for receiving complaints about violations of the standards. Complaints mechanisms must be community-based, easily accessible, confidential, and safe. The IASC protocol, also known as the Model Complaints and Investigation Procedures, describes how to establish complaints mechanisms. It also covers elements of the code of conduct, training issues, and many other key issues. Click here to see this document. Managers have specific responsibilities for receiving complaints and conducting investigations. Management responsibilities at this stage include the following steps. Conduct an initial brief investigation to determine whether there are grounds to conduct a full investigation. Establish a management plan for overseeing the investigation and supporting the investigation team. Click here to view the task worksheet. This tool is a short worksheet to help you plan for how to best support and manage the investigation. Appoint a qualified investigation team, usually 2 people. Click here to see the investigation planning tool. The investigation team is responsible for developing the investigation plan in collaboration with the manager. When the investigation is completed, the investigation team will submit their report to you, the manager, for decision-making and action. Click here to see a summary of possible outcomes. All of the resources for this section are available on the Resources tab. Key issues for managing investigations. The following is general guidance for managing an investigation. It is important to know the procedures, protocols, and processes yourself, and not to rely on the investigators and/or others. Managers are responsible and accountable for the entire investigation process. The written investigation plan should be completed with or by the investigator or investigators and any other participating investigatory body that may be involved. The plan should include strategies for dealing with difficulties that may arise, such as problematic interviews and reluctant witnesses. Managers should share the investigation plan appropriately with investigators and with their own manager. Confidentiality is essential. Consider carefully who will have access to the investigation plan. A lack of confidentiality will lead to the community losing confidence in the entire complaint system. Managers need to be clear with investigators about what the procedures are and that these procedures need to be followed, including agreement on the method of reporting back to the manager, who the manager must inform, such as human resources, CEO, or others, and on what aspects of the investigation, and how the complainant and subject of the complaint will be informed of the outcome. While the investigator will be responsible for developing a detailed investigation plan, the manager will be responsible for developing a management plan on the overall conduct of the investigation. There are several key considerations for managers, including, but not necessarily limited to, ensuring support to possible victims and witnesses, including the immediate safety of victims, maintaining confidentiality and sharing of information appropriately when needed, including signed confidentiality oaths for all who receive information, including any translators, matching the skills of potential investigators to the specific allegation, addressing staff safety and support, including that of the accused person and any staff who are involved in making the complaint, defining a media strategy. Other key issues include ensuring the integrity and thoroughness of the investigation, managing liaisons with other organizations that are involved. These might include health and psychosocial providers, other aid organizations, UN agencies, and local or national authorities. Resourcing the investigation adequately, including staff, budget, and equipment. Supervising the recording and reporting process, including safety and storage of records. Reviewing the investigation process and the investigation report. The task worksheet and investigation planning tool introduced earlier will help you develop your plan. Click the Resources tab to view or download these documents. A comprehensive guide for investigations is available here as well. Click the Resources tab to view or download Building Safer Organizations Guidelines, Receiving and Investigating Allegations of Abuse and Exploitation by Humanitarian Workers. Review. Management responsibilities, creating a culture of safety. We have gone through the 3 key management responsibilities for prevention and response to sexual exploitation and abuse. There are tools, materials, resources, and guidance materials available and accessible to help guide you through establishing and overseeing all of these processes. A code of conduct with good quality staff training and careful supervision is the first step. Community-based complaints mechanisms must be put into place to enable safe and confidential reporting of complaints, including suspicions. Once a complaint is received, there must be a clear process for investigations. The manager selects the investigation team and works closely with them, supervising and overseeing the entire process of investigation. Once the investigation is complete, the manager receives the report and is responsible for decision-making and action. Managers, therefore, are responsible to ensure all staff are aware of their responsibilities and the code of conduct. This involves, at minimum, training and periodic refresher training for all staff and all managers, and signing agreements to abide by the code of conduct. Managers should identify how staff and beneficiaries can access complaints mechanisms. Mechanisms for making complaints must be easily accessible, confidential, and must protect the complainant. This includes ensuring that staff and beneficiaries know how to make a complaint. Managers have specific responsibilities in managing and supporting investigations. The resource materials highlighted in this e-learning course provide guidance and step-by-step details to help managers fulfill their roles in investigations. It is a management responsibility to consider notifying national authorities if the alleged SEA is a criminal act under local law. This decision is made in consultation with the appropriate internal legal advisors. Managers are responsible for understanding local attitudes towards SEA. Understanding local attitudes will enable managers to establish complaints mechanisms appropriate for the specific context. In addition, knowledge of local attitudes will also enable careful management of investigations and the outcomes of investigations. It is also imperative that managers know local systems and services for victims. Referrals may be needed for care and support of victims and others involved in the case. For example, healthcare, psychosocial counseling, protection, and other services. In the absence of formal services, it may be necessary to access informal support mechanisms in the community. Referrals for support must always be made confidentially and with the consent of the victim or complainant. Creating a culture of safety goes beyond responding to complaints. It is a holistic approach to managing the risk of sexual abuse and exploitation, including preventative measures. The following elements all contribute to ensuring your organization promotes the safety of beneficiaries and staff. A code of conduct. Implement a code and tell all employees and beneficiaries what the code includes. Any poor practice should be challenged and addressed. If small aberrations are allowed to go unnoticed, this can create a culture where people think they can get away with it. Moreover, sexual offenders might manipulate such an environment to enable them to abuse or choose to work in the organization as they know their behavior is less likely to be challenged. Whistleblowing or speak out policies. Develop and implement policies obliging staff to raise concerns about other staff and protecting staff who make such allegations in good faith. Clear investigation procedures. Complaints of sexual abuse and exploitation may come up in ways that may not be immediately obvious. In some cases, a staff member might be investigated under another procedure, for example, misuse of office assets, and during this process, evidence of sexual abuse and/or exploitation comes to light. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Les Brown.